Okay, so I'm going to have to do this one a little bit differently apparently. We tried to use a microphone with the camera, and apparently we don't know what we're doing, so we have no sound on this video, so I'm having to go back and record it after the fact. So this video will be getting the fuel pump cut out, or should I say getting the hole cut to get the fuel pump out. So I started with a template just to try to see where I was cutting. Started drilling the corners out. I used a nibbler to actually cut the metal out. I'm sure there's a much better, cleaner way to do this, so hopefully when I go to work on my Camaro I'll have a better way of doing it, but this turned out just fine. And as you can see, if there was any doubt before, the car definitely was red at one time. I would have preferred she left it red, but I didn't come along in time to stop that. So we are drilling our pilot holes to try to fit our nibbler in here. Now, I think it would be so much better if I could get my wife to help me to actually hold the camera to record these videos, because it doesn't make a lot of sense now when you're looking back on these videos trying to edit and make them, and you're thinking, well, what the heck was I doing here? Because if the sound was left on the video, well, maybe I had some reason for doing what I was doing, but ultimately I can't remember what it was at this point. And it's like I keep telling my wife over and over and over, a lot of times it's hard to stop and position the camera to get a good view of what you're doing before you do it, because what may look like a good view is not always going to be the best view that you could have had. There we go, that helps. And then of course it goes back to somewhere where you can't see exactly what I'm doing. So this being my second video, hopefully by the time I do my third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on, I'll have figured this out a little bit better. But the gas tank is about an inch below the sheet metal here. So when you're drilling these pilot holes to cut, you got to be really careful that you don't pierce your gas tank. So we have all 4 holes drilled. Now we just need to come back with our nibbler. And if I remember correctly, when I did this, I think I had to drill them out a couple of times to just make them big enough to fit the nibbler in. So I'm not for sure, but now that I look back on it, I kind of like the way the stock wheels looked on the car. But they are long gone, and I'll be damned if I'm ever going to buy another set of them. So I think my son at this point in time had decided to help me and was holding the camera, staring off in the other direction. So as you can see, it's my first time using a nibbler, and it took a minute or two to figure it out. But what I'm curious about, I've never seen the back of a 4th gen F body like this, but there's a big wave in the metal there where I'm cutting, and it took a minute or two to get the nibbler to go around that. That makes me think maybe the car's been hit at one point in time, or is that just normal for that to buckle? Maybe somebody can help me out and explain that. So you can definitely tell my son's doing the recording. He's busy staring at his truck versus what we're working on. You can see what he was more interested in. But once you figured the nibbler out, it worked quite well. I plan to come back and put some sort of door over top of this hole eventually. Right now I just laid the carpet back down over it. Alright, so we should be free of the door or the sheet metal here in just a second. I know some people like to cut 3 sides and kind of just bend it back. I don't necessarily think I would like that, so I went ahead and just cut it out completely. And there's our fuel pump. Pretty nasty. But 30 years of junk. Toss the old metal away, we don't need that. So it's hard to remember exactly what we were doing at this point, but I'm pretty sure we were speculating on how that was not as hard as we thought it was going to be. Now I'm sure I either came back with the air compressor and blew all this crap out, or the vacuum cleaner and got rid of it, trying to prevent that from dropping down into my fuel tank. Okay, looking back at my cuts now, I can see that when I go to do this on my Camaro, I need to have a little bit cleaner. And my holes were drilled, well, on the back here, they're alright, but the ones on the top were drilled too far to the outside of my rectangle, so I'll have to bring those in a little bit, try to make it look a little bit neater. But hindsight's 20/20. At least I have this one to practice on. My son getting a picture of all the metal shavings that the nibbler shuts out. Of course, I was wearing eye protection during this because I'd hate to catch one of those in the eye. And yes, in case you're wondering, that is water in the bottom of the hatch on the Firebird. The seal around the window is shot. So we have a plan to take care of that little problem. I've been looking for one, but I can't seem to find anybody that sells one to replace it with. So now we get the vacuum out, cleaning everything up best we can, trying to prevent getting any of that metal into our gas tank, trying to prevent getting cut by any of that metal. And I generally like to try to have things a little cleaner when I'm working with them. Nice view of my shoulder there. Alright. So now I do believe the goal we had here was to start unhooking these lines. I believe that one that I'm holding up now is a vapor line, or a exhaust just to fumes. You got the one on the right of that vapor line that looks like a 2 line to the gas, to the engine. And I think the one on the right of that is a return line. think the one on the right goes to the charcoal canister, the one on the far left is a return, and the one next to the one that I took off already is the actual to the engine. Whole lot of fuel lines there for some reason. Now, I've seen people when they do this, they also cut out on the top left side where these lines go under. They also tend to cut out maybe an inch more of that on the top, just like a small little rectangle off to the side, because some of these lines are hard to get to, and that metal is sharp. But I didn't want to make my hole any bigger than I had to, and ultimately we were able to get to it. It wasn't that big of a deal. I think the hardest one to get to was the vapor line. Or no, not the vapor line. It was the return line coming from the engine back to the gas tank. It runs, there's a strap that goes over the fuel lines to where it goes underneath the gas tank, I guess, to help hold it up. And the connection for that one is almost underneath that strap. So it wasn't very easy to get to. So I'm sure at this point in time I was off to try to find some fuel injection disconnects, little disconnect tools going on at the time. Alright, and we're back finally. So we're trying to get down to get these connections undone on these fuel lines one at a time. Of course, the easy one there was the vapor line. And these fuel lines will move a little, but you can't really work them too hard. Now, there's a lot of people out there that don't believe in cutting the car to get to the fuel pump. I can understand it, but this car was a $1,300 car, and I don't see the point in going through all the work to remove the rear end to get the gas tank out to change a fuel pump on a $1,300 car. It's just not worth the effort, especially when I can come back and put a door on this and have it look professional and have easy access to the fuel pump in the future. And not have to go all the way back and remove the rear end, or drop the rear end to get to it again. So to me it only makes sense, but to each their own. So as you can see, we're getting another fuel line off. Yay, the two easy ones are done. And the only two that are left are the hard ones with the disconnects. Not that it's hard, it's just they're held down by that strap over there, and you can't really raise them up or move them out of the way to get to them. Now, if I remember correctly, this didn't go... The first one was pretty easy. It popped right off. Had a little bit of difficulty getting it in there, but my cheap little plastic fuel injection hose releases here are so I also took some corrugated plastic tubing there and covered the sides of the metal because I didn't want to get myself cut. I'm famous for cutting myself on stuff that I shouldn't have because I don't pay attention. So this time I planned ahead. Worked quite well, actually. I think that was my son's idea or his friend's idea. I can't remember who came up with it, but either way it worked in the end. So the first one was kind of easy to get to. The second one we had a bit of problem with. Actually, I think I broke the tool trying to get to the second one. Yep, okay, see, now we've got three that are disconnected. Heck, we may have all 4 disconnected at this point, if I've already moved along to looking at undoing all the little nuts that hold down the ring. This is the actual first time I've ever replaced a fuel pump in a Camaro. 4th gen, 3rd gen, whatever. Doesn't matter. Never done this before, so I was learning as I go. And it looks like there's still one line connected. Yeah, that one in front of my finger. Kind of hard to see. It's starting to get dark outside. As I only have about an hour, hour and a half each day to do anything. And then I start to lose daylight quickly. So, as I was trying to get to this last line, I think we established, it's not that I broke this tool, I think the tool was just too big to move the fuel line to get down in there where I could actually do something with it. I needed a little bit smaller of a tool. Okay, this is where we'll have to cut it a little short. Going through some growing pains and learning how to film and record and edit this stuff. So come back on our next video and see the project continue. Have a great day.